Shadows, the horror movie heroes by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 26. Pepper Spray. Siren, Sparky. Midoriya's voice echoed in their ears. Good work, but there's more heroes headed your way. Kyoka grimaced. Of course there is. What do you suggest? Well, I'd suggest you get out of there. Midoriya sounded like he was smiling, but there's no reason you can't cause some chaos before you go. Mirio's phone rang loudly, distracting him from the current crisis. He dug it out of his pocket and almost dropped it when he saw the snitch's number come up on the screen. Hello? Please tell me you know where the villains went. They're about a block north of you, heading down the main street, the snitch said. I'd send your friend Sun Eater after them. If he manifests wings, he should catch up to them quickly. Also, he ate rock candy earlier, right? If he can get close to the villains, he can use the crystals to take away any safe landing spots as they jump. Mirio nodded. Tamaki, the villains are only about a block north of here. The snitch suggests using your crystals to prevent them from landing. Okay, as long as I don't have to talk to them. Tamaki shivered but sprouted wings and followed the villains out the window. It wouldn't take him long to catch up to them. That's not the reason I called. The snitch's voice took on a desperate quality. I just found out the drug dealers booby-trapped the apartment. Mirio froze. What kinds of booby traps? Some kind of gas, at the very least. The snitch sniffed. I'm so sorry. If I'd known, I never would have. It's all right. Mirio tried to make his voice sound reassuring. Nobody move. The place is booby-trapped. His classmates' eyes widened, but they barely had time to process his warning before there was a quiet boom, and the room started filling with gas. His classmates started running, and Mirio went intangible. It looked like the warning came just in the nick of time. Hitoshi ignored the dead hero's protests as he waited, gun in hand, for the right moment. He didn't want to open fire until the heroes had at least gotten a chance to arrest the other villains. Otherwise, there was no way they'd be able to frame them for the attack. Of course, they could always blame the whole thing on Jiro and Kaminari, but that was just the backup plan, not the ideal. The ideal was to keep Shadows off the hero's radar as much as possible, at least until tomorrow. Hitoshi was excited for tomorrow. There had been a little earthquake earlier, probably due to Shindo's quirk, but even though Shinso had a clear view of the apartment, Izuku had told him to hold off for now. As per usual, he'd come up with another one of his crazy plans. So Hitoshi's job was to use the chaos to pick off as many heroes as possible, and Hitoshi planned on doing it well. There was a muffled explosion, and the apartment he was watching started filling with some sort of gas. He was just wondering if that was the signal when Izuku gave him the go-ahead. Okay, Hitoshi, fire at will. Hitoshi picked a paint gun from his duffel bag and aimed it at the window. The gas, probably pepper spray, would make it more difficult to see his targets, but it would also make it more difficult for his targets to see him, or his paintballs. Aiming wasn't really important when a wide spray of bullets would get the job done. Time to paint that apartment red. Izuku sat back to watch the chaos through the cameras. It had taken some stealth to get 2 of Jiro's pepper spray canisters inside the apartment, but once that was done, Jiro had plugged an earphone jack into each one, and a powerful heartbeat rhythm had been enough to pop the canister from the inside out. Izuku honestly hadn't been sure it would work, but Jiro apparently had a very powerful heartbeat. Her quirk was just so interesting, especially since it still seemed to be developing. He still had so many questions, though. Why had her quirk just barely evolved to include heartbeat control? And even the strength to pop these pepper spray cans. Her quirk was extremely powerful, but she didn't seem to realize it. The issue was that she seemed fairly confident in other areas of her life. She dressed how she wanted. She would tease Hitoshi to no end. She didn't even seem that shy when they'd confronted her about playing music. She had some insecurities, sure, but overall she was a confident person, so it just seemed out of character for her to not own up to the strength of her quirk, unless it had only gotten more powerful recently. Izuku shook the thought from his head as Hitoshi started painting the apartment red. People's quirks didn't just suddenly get more powerful out of nowhere. It was much more likely that she'd just been training more, and that was what had led to the evolution. Or it was quirk enhancing drugs, but that probably would have shown up in the background check they'd done for the exercise. Either way, Izuku could worry about that later. The apartment had been full of heroes after ambushing the Hata brothers, so even though they'd started running out after the pepper spray bombs, Hitoshi's blanket of bullets had hit quite a few. Not all of the injuries would be fatal, of course, but this move would still take quite a few heroes out of commission. He should have stationed Hitoshi with a view of the front door to pick the heroes off as they run away. Oh well, the point of this exercise was to live and learn. Izuku saw 3 of the heroes drop their tokens and call over to Hitoshi, "Fall back. Meet us back at base. We need to regroup." Izuku saw Hitoshi nod and start to put away his gun. "Sparky and Siren?" Already on their way back to base, Izuku said, "Both of them are alive if you were worried." "I wasn't. The camera quality wasn't good enough to see if he was blushing or not. I mean, they're fun, but they won't be around for much longer." "All the more reason to enjoy them while they're here," Izuku teased. "See you soon." When the door to the dead room opened, Elektra had been expecting 1 person to walk through. Maybe 2. Not 7. They were all covered in red paint, and 3 of them had their eyes swollen shut on top of that. Recovery Girl followed behind them, leaning on her cane as she pointed toward the bathrooms. "You 3 go continue washing out your eyes. Pepper spray is nasty stuff, and I can heal the swelling, but it won't do any good until the irritants are all gone." "Well, what are you waiting for? Get going." The 3 teens with swollen eyes stumbled toward the bathrooms, and the other 4 shuffled awkwardly as they watched their classmates go. Recovery Girl glared at them. "As for the rest of you, I'll heal those welts you got from the paintballs, but you need to focus on watching the exercise and figuring out where you went wrong." "I know where we went wrong," a boy muttered. "We were ambushed by villains." The Recovery Girl bopped him on the head with her cane. "Be that as it may, you are still here to learn. Now come here and get your kisses." The students lined up dejectedly, and Elektra couldn't help a little chuckle as she watched them all lean away from the Recovery Girl's healing kisses. As soon as they were all healed, Recovery Girl shooed them away to the couch. Tamada, as usual, looked at the newcomers with interest and got a mischievous glint in his eyes, and he stood up on one of the couches. "All right, ghosts, place your bets. Who's responsible for this massacre?" "What's the point?" Hansi groaned. "It was obviously Shadows." "Wait," one of the heroes frowned. "Who's Shadows?" They looked at him incredulously, and Tamada barked out a laugh. "I guess that means they're doing a good job." "I don't know if it was them," the guard who said he'd been shot by the green shadow said. "It might have been their new friends. Didn't the girl pick up pepper spray at the pawn shop?" "She did," Elektra nodded, "but I don't think my kid could have killed 7 heroes on his own, so my money is on a team effort." "You're betting on how we died? That's totally uncool." It's just a little bit of fun." Tamada grinned. "Any other bets?" "Can we just watch the video?" one of the heroes complained. "It's embarrassing enough without you guys all taking bets." "Fine." Tamada huffed good-naturedly and jumped down onto the couch. "But just so you know, I bet it was the Shadows." Elektra couldn't help but be a little critical as the hero students walked right into a trap while thinking they were setting a trap for someone else. She was sure their teachers would have a lot to say about them trusting the snitch so blindly, especially considering that the Green Shadow wasn't the official snitch. Her main attention wasn't on the heroes, though. It was on Denki. He wasn't here, which meant that he'd survived somehow. But it was apparently a close call considering how much of a fight the heroes put up. Elektra watched with bated breath as she watched her kid fight for his life and then, finally, come out on top. And then Denki pulled out his gun. Tamada let out a low whistle. "I guess you were right about it being a team effort." Elektra knew she was catching flies, but she just couldn't stop gaping as she watched her son. He just shot someone. Two someones! She started grinning. She knew she should be mad at the shadows for killing her and basically kidnapping her son. But Dinky was doing so well. She was a proud mama. Who could blame her? Okay, most parents wouldn't be proud of their son for shooting someone, especially not parents who were also heroes. But the point of the exercise was to act like villains. So really, she was just encouraging her son in his goals, right? Besides, even if he was using these skills to be a villain right now, they were still combat skills and therefore applicable to hero work. Speaking of applicable skills, maybe she should talk to Snipe about getting Danky some shooting lessons after this, because he was a pretty good shot. Her thoughts were interrupted when Recovery Girl eased herself down on the couch next to her. Hello, Electra. Long time no see. Your boy is doing well. Electra chuckled. Better than I did, that's for sure. He's got a lot of bad influences. Recovery Girl laughed. I'll be honest. We expected the shadows to get arrested the first day. I'm glad they didn't, though. The kids are learning a hard lesson, but it'll be good for them. If it doesn't scar them forever. Electra winced. The shadows. Those kinds of villains are hard to fight. I wouldn't want to come against them in real life. Recovery Girl nodded. Neither would I. Don't worry, though. Nedzu has plans to steer them onto the right path. End of chapter.